to order this evening. We have one item on our agenda, and that's really what we discussed earlier, was to take a look at the 2020 rules to see if there's any changes or enhancements that we want to make going forward for this legislative session. All right, and for the new counselors and to refresh the senior counselors, every year the council adopts and approves rules that we use to kind of govern how we do business, and we have the luxury to kind of tweak them and change them, and you'll see as we modify them over time, they get just a little bit, my word would be better, some may not like them as better, but, so what you have been provided is a copy of the track change version and a clean version that I sat down with the city clerk and our city assistant, council assistant Karen, to go over. Most of the changes, the majority of the changes were editorial in nature, to make kind of gender neutral, change nouns and pronouns to proper titles. There were some items that said chairman that we changed to chair. So I did the best I could in that email to outline each one, what the change was, and you have it in the track changes. So I'm just going to start with that one first and just ask, everybody good? If I missed something, or did we, if we missed something, Steve, Karen, and I will make those changes on those. Otherwise, they're there. And my thought process is this evening, we'll get all the changes that we want in here. Then it'll get, I guess, reported out to the full council for a vote, assuming we like it. If we don't like it and have more changes, we can have another meeting. There is no hurry. These are our rules. We can do them as fast or as slow as we want. But I think it's just a good time for people to just take a good look at them, make sure they see them, understand them, ask questions, and make enhancements. So with that said, so the four things, that was one was all what I call my minor editorial changes. Right. The second change, what I call more substance, was taking the Wireless Communications Committee and rolling it into public service. And the rationale for that was that we haven't had a wireless one in a while, which isn't a bad thing, but as Councilor Doucette will tell you, the technology is going to 5G land, and those become mounted boxes on telephone poles in places. And since public service really does telephone poles, and we had we actually set the new ordinance, I think it's 473, in place last year, where we outlined the process for the wireless boxes on telephone poles or on city facilities. I think we're pretty well streamed, and those should go real smoothly through public service. If someone did want to put in a wireless tower, we're pretty good at that now. We know how that all works, and that would just be picked up. I don't see a rash of wireless towers coming. And then the beauty, again, with the rules, if we decide to change it, we can always modify it and move it back. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First, I agree with the change. I think that's a perfect place for the technology to land. I think because the wireless antennas and stations are special permits, I think there has to be some other rewording of the paragraph describing public service, so that it ends wireless committee technology and other engineering issues and report on applications for applicable licenses and special permits. Because basically, the wireless stuff requires a special permit, so it's licenses and special permit. So I think having that type of wording would make it more clear as far as what's being covered.
Okay, and I just want to open up a discussion, and just so the councilors know, the city clerk and our council assistant, I want them to weigh in as well, just to make sure we're not, as we go through any of these changes, it's clear. Is it a value? Does it say that now with how it's worded? I just want, full disclosure. Everybody feel free to weigh in. So, thoughts or comments on the comment by Councilor Doucette? Councilor Roby?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess to clarify, maybe through the clerk to you, a license would include the special permit application for a wireless communication, would it not?
I guess you could read it that way, but under the, to Councilor Doucette's point, under the wireless committee, it did state requests for special permits. So, I mean, you could interpret it, I mean, to add it, I don't think would be a bad thing. I mean, because as you pointed out, if someone's going to put up a cell tower, which they're few and far between now, but that does require a special permit, so.
Would you still consider a tower wireless communication technology, or are cell towers totally different?
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong too, Karen, I think cell towers there's a specific special permit application geared towards wireless antenna. Excuse me, a freestanding cell tower that they used to put up all the time.
So if one of those came in, we would have to figure out who to refer it to. It
Correct.
wouldn't necessarily go to.
Doesn't necessarily have to go to Public Services. I mean, it could go to Urban Affairs. It can go to any committee of the council's choosing. I mean, just like anything, but.
My expectation would go to public service.
Right.
That's why wouldn't it? Under the change we're making, why wouldn't it be under?
It would, I mean,
wireless?
right,
Can't have wireless without a cell tower.
right.
for the most part.
I mean, so, like I said, 6 of one, half dozen of another. I mean, I suppose it doesn't matter if you added the words for special permits to it. I mean, it
Well,
wouldn't.
again, I was hoping that the words wireless communications technology encompassed all that, because I don't know what 6G, 10G, 20G is gonna look like, Yeah, I mean, I just thought having it just wireless communication just says, it's, again, put back 20 years ago, or 100 years ago, we're putting up telephone poles, and that was a big deal. Now, we don't put up a whole lot of telephone poles, though we do see them a handful of times during the course of the year. But the new wave is wireless, and I figured that it works better in public service.
But I believe the intent is to roll into public services, everything wireless communications do.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so on Council Doucette, so adding the word special permit after license, that's not, everybody okay with that, or they're good?
I can make that an official motion if you want me to.
Well, I guess we can do them one at a time, so you want to, well, again, none of these things have been approved yet, so really, this is our working document to kind of play with, and then what I'm looking for is consensus afterwards, that are we all comfortable with it? I mean,
Right, but we are the Rules Committee, so.
Right.
do-
yeah, but we haven't made a motion to accept all the edited changes either.
I know, but okay.
It's-
Chairman, maybe this would be, I just want to mention one fact here. It says here the reported applications for licenses. I don't know if some of the new members understand what other licenses we approve. The junk dealer license is one of the biggies. Members, Sabres was one of our biggest ones that we spent a lot of time on, and apparently it's fairly successful. And believe it or not, the other one we have, which I always wondered why, we have the licenses for livery licenses. We always thought that the chief of police had taxis, which we don't have. For a livery license, we do. That does fall under public services. So I don't know if some of the new members, would realize that.
Okay. Any further? Council Dumas?
Can there be an attachment that lists all the licenses that follows this rules? The same as personnel, like there's a document that states what can be confirmed, what couldn't. So if we just get this in our mailbox as a new city councilor, you're like, well, where do I find that document of the list of licenses or the list of personnel that we actually confirm?
I'm not sure, would we want to make it, I mean, that's just really a knowledge thing, because I mean, I know what you're saying, but
But
you're just making it, so.
where would
when
you
say
find that?
license, what license? Is it the
Right.
dog license? Is it the?
Well, just the ones that the councils approve.
Yeah,
Like,
the
how would I
livery
know
license,
which
pool table
license?
License, I mean.
I was most of them are outlined in the code, in
Okay.
the city code. It enumerates what, pool table licenses, livery licenses, fuel storage licenses, things like that. They're mainly enumerated in the code.
So would I have
But
to,
the
I would have
Council
to look.
Dumas's point is, he's looking for all of us, what
list?
is that list? So, I mean, and you know it because you got to collect a fee on it.
Correct.
You-
We could, my office, we could prepare a list similar to the boards and committee list that we prepare. I mean, if you want, rather than make it a part of the rule, because if something were to change, then.
No, I don't make it part of the rule, but just as an or see attachment 1A, or something, so it's actually all, like, I didn't know, like, so being now personnel, I didn't know what we confirm and what we don't confirm, because it just says, oh, like, I don't know where that list was, but if it was with the actual, what I got first day, I'm like, oh, that makes sense, so I can simplify things, just to throw that out
We
there.
can prepare a list. I mean, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Sorry to put more
Mr.
work on
Chair, I
it.
didn't know if Councilor Dumas was heading, like a license for your shop. Is that where you were heading? Because you do have a certain license that you have in your salon, right?
Right, but as a new council that came on board, I don't know what license we approve and what
Does that
license we
come from the
don't.
Board of Health? Your license?
My license from the salon comes from the state.
State,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a state board issue. Correct,
Now, I imagine some licenses do come from the Board of Health,
Yes,
correct.
vast
they
majority.
have nothing to do with the majority. There's
Vast,
nothing to do with that.
vast majority. I mean, there's and the license between the Board of Health and License Commission.
But no,
They issue a vast majority of
But
licenses.
to Council Dumas's point, I think it's an education thing, right?
Correct.
So it's,
Right.
you know, if we come up with just that
I'd be
list
more
of
than
what
happy to-
typically would come to
Correct.
public service, it's an education for all the councils, so they all get an opportunity to see
Sure.
what
I'm-
public service does.
My office can work on it, I'll work with Karen, and we can make sure we put a list together. Sure.
Thank you.
That's not or that's just
Nope,
information.
just something we can do.
Provide to the
It's
council.
very easy.
Thank you, Council Dumas. Council Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I thank you very much, Steve, for doing that. I've been looking for that for a while. If you could also include where the list comes from as far as where in the...
We're in the code?
Where in the
Sure, I'll
code.
reference the code.
Sure. Perfect, thank you.
A lot of this stuff comes from state law.
Yeah, some of it is, right.
Wherever it comes from, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay, the third of the, what I call the significant, more meaty changes is, you know, in light of what's going on in the world, I thought it's probably time to come up with a committee on climate resiliency. I know I've talked to some of the councils on their thoughts on it, so I tried to leave it a little open, you know, just to, because I'm not really sure how it's going to all unfold, but, so it reads, "A committee on climate resiliency, again consisting of 3 members, to whom shall be referred questions or issues relating to reducing the city's carbon footprint." I kept it at 3 because 5, it gets a little more onerous with 5. All committee members can participate, but I think 3 is a good start. We can try it, see how it works. If it doesn't work, we can do something else, but I thought this was a good attempt to at least start looking at, from a city side, how we can do best to, you know, work through the mayor's office with the department heads to help reduce the city's carbon footprint. So I'm looking for insights from the councilors on your thoughts, right approach, wrong approach, not worth it. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think it's a good start. I think having a committee from the council to address this puts a degree of seriousness on addressing climate change. I'm open to possibly rewording, instead of just reducing the city's carbon footprint, specifically refer to emissions, but I'm not going to argue that point. I think, you know, where we go from here depends upon really, this is a great step for the city to take, and hopefully we can get something done over the next 2 years with this new committee. Thank you.
Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to echo my support for this type of committee. I think it's really important, and probably the work that will happen in this committee will impact the other ones as well, and how we can just be more green overall as a city and as a council. And I'm curious around the wording, if it could also be framed in more of a proactive mindset and not just responding, you know, maybe to some of the changes that would need to be made, but also looking at ways maybe in the mindset of looking to other communities of what they're doing and how we can even engage the community in that way. And I know we want to keep it more broad, but I'm wondering if the wording could be more all-encompassing.
No, I mean, if you have suggested wording, I mean, the reason I wanted, the wording is trying to keep it consistent with the other committees. What the actual committee does, that's up to the chair and the committee members. I mean, if they want to go, you know, work through the state items, work through the MMA, go look for best practices at other cities and towns. We all hear things, we all find, the news is always coming up with someone that's doing something, because to me, it's not just, in my mind, not just, as Council Doucette said, reducing the carbon footprint, but whether it's our waste stream, the solid waste reduction, more green space to what do you call it, eat all the carbon so that we can have a balancing act. It's all, but to try, if we spent the next 3 months trying to figure out how we want it worded, we're gonna lose an opportunity to do something. So I just thought something sweet, but if you have words, I don't wanna come up with the words. If you've got the words, I'm willing to write them down, but I want words to be, not, hey, make it broader. Let's look with Councilor Perlman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that we don't want to, be wordsmithing forever. I might just suggest adding to proactively reducing the city's carbon footprint, because I do want it to be initiatives like new ideas. It could be an innovative opportunity rather than just sort of looking at what could be done in more of a minimum sense, but looking ahead.
Okay, so add the word proactively there.
Correct. Thank you.
Councilor Orm?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In today's world, especially around the Commonwealth, we're seeing more efforts with sustainability. So that word sustainability is becoming a person's position now. Where I work in Ashland, we have a new sustainability director. So with the wording, you could even add that word in, and sustainability, carbon footprint and sustainability, if you want to add that at the very end, because it's becoming more and more of a recognized field and position within municipal government.
Hang on, and sustainability. I just want to get the words down, then we can.
I mean, that's a suggestion. I'm not saying it has to be
Okay,
there.
all right. Council Landers and Council Rowe.
Thank you, thank you, Chairman. I think 3 members is more than adequate for right now. I wouldn't go any bigger. And I think if we start with 3 members of a committee like this, I think they could probably accomplish or start accomplishing what we want. So I think 3 is a good number.
Council Roby?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my point would be on adding the word proactive. Committees in and of themselves, I don't think should be proactive in what I consider that word. That a member can be proactive and then submit something for a council order, which would be referred to the committee. But I don't see the committee getting together and doing something that had not been referred to them first, and do things in that usage of the proactive. Do you understand the difference? No committee can do anything that hasn't been referred to them as a committee, but anybody can submit orders to the council. So you as a member of the council can be proactive, and you can go and research, and you can say, oh, I like the way this city did this or this town did that, and you can bring it forward. If it's referred, then it's now under the committee's purview. So I personally am not in favor of the word proactive for committees.
I understand. I think for Councilor Perlman, that's what Councilor Roby's saying is the committee, we refer things to the committee. So as a council, if you say, hey, I want electric charging stations at every gas station in the city going forward, all right? So, you would submit that as an order that would then be referred to, I assume, this committee, and the committee would then take it up. But the committee doesn't go out of its way to go proactively find stuff, because that's not what the charge of the committee is, as Council Roby says. It's just like the finance. I don't go out in the finance committee to go out and find ways to say, I can, but if I do, I submit it as an order and say, councilors, here's an opportunity to save money in the city, refer it to finance and the finance. So your model is right. I mean, that's where we want to go. It's just having reflected on it a little bit, the wording is probably not right at this point in time. Council Perlman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I agree. That makes sense not to use that exact wording given the nature of the committee being referred content. I'm just curious if there's maybe another way to phrase it, just to suggest the urgency of this committee's work, since climate change is rapidly changing. And so my fear is that it seems like a little stagnant if we just passively reducing the the carbon footprint. So that was just my suggestion, but definitely can take into nature once the committee gets underway to see what would work best.
So it was intentional on my part to word it loosely like this, because I don't know where it's gonna go, but I didn't wanna make the stand that the world was coming to an end here in the city of Marlborough by having wording that challenges how the committee's gonna operate. This leaves it wide open. The committee can look at whatever orders come before us, or whatever proposals come down from the mayor's office for solar panels on more schools, or proverbial landfill, or you know, or whatever's coming, that, you know, it would then get referred to this committee. But, you know, so what do we want to do? We want to reduce our carbon footprint, or more, so we're sustainable. I'm not sure how to work that word in, Councilor Orem, so if you can help me come up with a way to work that in, if you want it in, or we start with this and then if we want to amend it later, we can do that. But I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that. That's,
Yeah, no, that makes sense as well. And just to Councilor Orem's point, maybe putting sustainability, relating to sustainability and reducing the city's carbon footprint, I think putting it at the end makes it seem like it's reducing. So I think.
Does that work? Okay. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much. I think sustainability should be, we're talking about improving sustainability. So I think having, you know, the adjective I think is important in this point, because you're reducing the city's footprint and improving sustainability. So I think we want to make sure that one's going down, one's going up, and having that type of description within that, I think, would make it more sense.
So improving sustainability and reducing carbon footprint. Got it. So it's good. So it's going to be relating to improving sustainability and reducing the city's footprint. Here we go with that. Right. The last one I had, and I want to give full credit to the city clerk. Steve did a nice job. So in the past, finance, human services, and veterans just said, we're going to have committees. And so for the new councils, for as long as I've been on it, that's what it said, and the councils survived extremely well. However, putting some, you know, when you, again, in my position now, when you look at these a little differently, you look at them and say, what the city clerk brought up is correct. I mean, it doesn't say what, so again, does that mean all these committees do? No, but it kind of gives a little flavor as to what the committees do. So I don't know what the flavor of the councils are, but to Steve, thank you very much. I thought that was some good insight to kind of align or make a little more meaningful what the committees do. So comments or thoughts on that? So those are the ones that between Steve, Karen, and myself came up with. All right. I understand Councilor Roby has some items she would like to discuss.
I do, and I believe everybody has a copy. I'm not on. Oh, thank you. I went through after I had seen what was presented by the president, and have come up with a few other suggestions. So the first one is in number 6, where I'm changing the order of business. I had been aware of something called a consent agenda while listening to other people, both school committees and city councils and Board of Selectmen. And it really just gives the agenda an opportunity to take a lot of stuff that's non-controversial and put it all in one package. It would be at the beginning of the meeting under the consent agenda. I detail how the president would consult with the clerk from all of the stuff that's been presented for a specific agenda, and would determine which of them would be appropriate for the consent agenda. If there is a reason why somebody doesn't feel they belong in the consent agenda, then it can be removed and it can be discussed. But the idea is that there is no discussion on anything in the consent. It would just be a simple, the president would read, if there's no objection, these items will be adopted. And then they would be specified, but rather than our current practice of listing every single board and commission's minutes by date and item number, it would be other boards and commissions. And they would be listed, but you wouldn't have to read them in the consent agenda. The consent agenda would just be other minutes of other boards and commissions. So a lot of the stuff that we do that takes time, but isn't really important business can get taken care of. So that would be the only change for the order of business. Everything else would just continue as is there. So I don't know, do you want me to
Well,
stop for questions, or?
Well, I wanted, so Steve, the city clerk pointed out to me that for every time there's an agenda item on the agenda, in other words, so say there's 10 minutes, school committee, board of health, council on aging, cultural affairs, he has to do an order number, it's got to get approved, so there's work involved, so in the efficiency of government, trying to all get there, right, in reducing the amount of paper that has to be processed in the city, you have one vote and says, here's all the minutes, here's all the National Grid rate case of 1922, or whatever they send us, right? You know, the 276, all that stuff that we normally just say, accept place on file, gets lumped in one spot, becomes accept place on file, all right? And we're done. If, say, Central Mass Mosquito, Councilor says, hey, I want to pull that out because there's something I need to tell somebody, we take that item out and it gets discussed. But it saves, I'm not worried about us saving meeting time, but I'm just thinking the downhill ramifications of what the city clerk has to do to put order numbers on items, to get them filed, to get them signed. We're saving a lot of paper on the back end of business. And if we're uncomfortable with it, and I know it's a little new, we could always put, it's in for 2020 as an optional one, and we can try it, and if we like how it works, good. And if we don't like how it works, we go back to the old way. I mean, thoughts? Councilor?
The only item I'm thinking of that may be of issue is when someone donates money, a lot of times it doesn't go to finance, we accept and place it on file, usually with a thanks to whoever donated. I would rather see those not within a consent agenda, just so the person donating can be recognized. So that's one that would concern me, because I think it deserves recognition for anyone that's donating money to city agencies.
Is there discussion on the consent agenda? Because, I mean, that's something you could discuss at that point and say, hey, one of the items was a donation, and we can kind of work our way through it.
Right. Well, I think if you read the way that I would have it written, that the president in consultation with the clerk. So if you choose to put it in there because you don't think there's a desire on the part of the person to be recognized necessarily, or the fact that it's already been put in the paper, or there's been enough recognition, the mayor's gone, there's the police chief went and they got thanked for it. Put it in there. If somebody says, no, it's important enough, they can request to have it pulled.
But, Mr. President, just with donations, those usually are gifts, or almost like a gift or a grant. Those have to be approved by the council before those monies can be expended. So those really wouldn't fall under a consent agenda to accept and file. So, I mean, because they would require an order, it would have to be generated to be signed by the mayor, and then so it can be sent to the auditor, so the auditor, then there has to be a paper trail, so the auditor knows that the council has seen that.
Okay, so that helps
So those-
clear it. So it's not
Correct.
everything that we accept and place on file.
Well,
Those we approve.
Generally,
The city clerk's right, we approve, any monies we have to approve. That's
So that solves that problem then. Okay, thank you.
Council Landis.
This is something new to me, which is fine. Is it to save the city clerk's office time, save our meetings time? See, I guess what I would miss, I'm thinking of, they'd be appearing in our minutes at the next meeting differently. And I think all the time that oftentimes, and Karen's done it for us and we've done it ourselves, you're looking back at previous minutes of meetings. You know, you might like to look at the meeting, say last, October 3rd for some reason or other. And these wouldn't be as clear cut as we have them now, is that correct? I mean, could you look up the minutes of the Disability Commission?
Sure. Our office is required to maintain minutes anyways.
Are they listed the way they are now in the
In a consent agenda?
My example of last October. I don't know if it's worth it.
I'm not sure. I mean, right now, I know what Councilor Ossing was speaking to about, because he did ask, and every action by the council generates an order. I mean, anytime the council takes any action on my part, I generate an order for it because it is an order of the city council. It's also for future reference as well. My only concern, and I don't know if it's a concern, we can figure out a way around it, is for historical purposes, trying to find minutes in the past and whatnot. What I would do right now, for example, if Councilor Landers came to me and said, can you find me the minutes of the Disabilities Commission from January 5th, 2009? What I can do is we maintain an index in my office. We maintain an index of all the orders, and I would go to that index and I would search it and I would find the minutes of the Disabilities Commission for January 1st, 2009. It would give me an order number, which then would lead me to my order stored in the vault in the basement, and I would pull that order and I would have the minutes there. I can adapt to anything that the council wants to do. Whatever you want to do, if you want to reduce the paper, we can, a couple of ideas that I had was, listing all the minutes but under one item, so it's minutes of boards and commissions as opposed to a consent agenda. But I mean, want to do a consent agenda, that's fine. I mean, makes no never mind to me. I will adapt to whatever the council wants to do.
That's why I have mixed feelings. I don't know if it's worth all this, really, because this new approach, it's creating more work for someone, maybe.
Potentially, I mean, like I said, all these, I'm still going to generate an order, even if it's a consent agenda. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be one order number, it's going to be everything on the consent agenda is going to get rammed into that one thing, and I'm going to have to list it, and then when I index it, which is fine, I mean, because the index is, I'm doing it indexing electronically. I mean, I can index it all and reference one order number, so, everything will, there'd be this giant fat order that if you want the minutes of the January 1st, 2010, when I pull the order out, there's going to be, depending upon how many minutes get submitted, it's going to be 30. I mean, it's always just been the practice of the council to accept and file the minutes. I mean, this is probably where Karen, Karen's hiding back there, so I get to say it, but we disagree a little bit. The minutes aren't required to go on the agenda. We place them on the agenda more as courtesy and reference, and it's easy to find for everyone. I mean, all that's required under the law is that boards and commissions file their minutes with the clerk. So I have to maintain a book in my office, or I have to maintain some sort of filing system in my office for people to find the minutes. What's been done has always been by order. So, but I can do it whatever way the council wants to do it.
And I guess what I envisioned was similar to what we currently have as a agenda, except at the end where all those boards and commissions are listed with their individual order numbers. Those would be now at the top in the consent agenda with a number 1, boards and commissions. You would
List everyone.
index them, but they wouldn't be listed individually. The only list by the president or the clerk reading the consent agenda would be minutes of boards and commissions.
Right,
period.
similar, I would assume similar to.
Of that meeting would have listed then every single one of the specific minutes that we approved.
And similar to the claims, I guess, is the way that we do it currently on our agenda, similar to claims. Right now, we list claims, and I list, you guys are going to have probably about 12 of them on your next agenda because, potholes, mailboxes, all the winter ailments that we face in the city are all, they're coming. So, there's going to be a bunch of them on the agenda. But when we get to that point in the agenda, I just usually say claims, and then they're sent off. I don't list each individual claim.
That's actually,
yeah.
Mr. Clerk, that's actually a perfect example. I mean, if that helps you at all, because we don't list, pothole at Mr. Landers' house, mailbox at Ossing's house. We just say
Claims.
Well, so for the consent agenda, it would just be boards and minute meeting, and we'd have, they're all still, nothing's.
They'll all be listed,
They're all still
and they'll still be in your packets. I will still.
So the copies of the minutes will be in our packet.
Absolutely, I'll still distribute all that stuff.
That's what I like, because I'll be quite honestly, when I get my package, it's probably the first time I've read the school committee minutes.
Yeah, but no, I'll still distribute, and I will still distribute everything that would fall on this consent agenda, even if it's to accept and file, as the council president said, when you get that National Grid, rate information that they sent, and when you get this one that, somebody, sent a letter and you're gonna just accept, these are items that are accepted and filed, I think that's where Councilor Roby's going, so.
Those aren't the ones that concern me, it's the minutes of our commission.
You would
But no,
still give
they'll-
them to read.
They'll still be, trust me, we will still provide them in the packet and distribute them, but it's just gonna be the way that, I guess, that they're adopted, that's all.
I'm more satisfied. Less dissatisfied.
Okay.
Very
So
good.
my next one is number 13, and it's just adding in some words to clarify that the differences of opinion are for these specific rules, and that the governing body is the latest edition of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, so that in 2020, when the new edition of Robert's Rules comes out, and somebody has the 2020 edition comes out, somebody has a 2010 edition, and there's a difference of opinion, which one do we use? The latest edition.
Isn't that implied, though? I mean, again, in the 20 years,
Well,
in my 20 years, I've not had any, and that doesn't mean the council's been around a lot longer than my 20 years on the council. I don't have anybody arguing about a specific passage in a version of Robert's Rules.
I don't think we have, but I don't think it would hurt to put it in there, because if we need to go to Robert's Rules for anything, we need to understand exactly which Robert's Rules we go to.
Which one?
And I don't ever remember anybody saying, oh my goodness, what do? I have to refer to Robert's Rules. So we're cleaning up the rules. It's just a suggestion to continue to clean them.
City Clerk or Karen, any thoughts?
A rule book in your desk, and the other one who rules on the rules, so you would make the decision, and then they could either agree with you or disagree with you.
Not a hill for me to die. I just want to make sure we don't get too caught up in the wording of stuff, that's all.
Well, first, I think it's important for everybody to understand that these are rules that we can suspend. We can't suspend ordinances, and we can't suspend code. You can't suspend Robert's Rules of Order. But Robert's Rules of Order allows you to have special rules, which are what these are, special rules, that you can suspend. So the book that we would be referring to for anything else, we need to be clear what that book is.
Well, it says right here, the latest edition.
I know, but it didn't say that before.
Oh, well, okay.
Those are,
Fine.
that's
That
the
satisfies me, the latest edition,
latest
then
edition.
whatever is published or what we have on hand. That's what we go by.
Okay.
Okay. 15 is, I guess if you look at what it currently says at the very end of that list, it says the motions to adjourn and lay on the table shall be decided without debate. That's taken directly from Robert's Rules of Order. And I think that there's confusion by this body between postpone and lay on the table and the word table. We always say, I move to table. Well, under Robert's Rules of Order, if you lay on the table, if you don't take it back up at that same meeting, it's gone. If you want to take it up at a future meeting, you postpone, or you postpone to a date certain. So I put the specifics of what each of those mean, and again, it's very clear from Roberts that you cannot debate if somebody moves to lay on the table, but you can debate if somebody moves to postpone. You could move to postpone it to a different meeting, or postpone it to whatever you wanted to do. So,
So that's, because,
There were
again,
fun.
we've been using that, again, since I've been here,
I know,
right?
we all do.
So our rules don't always agree with Robert's.
I know they don't. I learned, one of the first things I learned was that the motion to reconsider does not, but we can do that, we can have special rules. But when it's very clear that it says the motion to adjourn and lay on the table shall be decided without debate, I think we need to be clear what the motion to lay on the table means. So when somebody says, I want to lay this on the table, first, there's no debating. If you say, I want to postpone it to a future meeting, you could debate it and say, I want to postpone it till August of next year.
So sometimes you would say, I want to table it to the next meeting, so there's no discussion until the next meeting. That's how we've always done it. Or if you just say the table, it pretty much means it's gone.
Right. So I think if we just kind of be, and it could, Robert says it's to postpone or to postpone to a date certain. So that's kind of that clarifier there. But if you table something, if you don't take it back up that meeting, it's gone.
So then someone would have to make a motion to remove from the table at that meeting.
And you might want to, you've got something important that you need to discuss. So you say, Mr. President, I move to lay on the table item number 3. And you take up whatever it is that you need to take up immediately, and then somebody says, I move to take from the table item number 3. If you forget about item number 3, if it was important and it had to be done that night, too bad. If it's important and you can put it on the next agenda, you can, but it's not automatically on the next agenda. So,
Not unless the body votes to have it on the next agenda.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, past practice, doesn't mean we're doing it right, has been to table to the next meeting, is what, usually is what we've said.
Yes.
And you're saying we should be saying we're postponing it to the next meeting.
Yes.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One other thing about item 15, just in general structure, I prefer to not have forward referencing when it comes to documentation, like items 10 and 11, refer to Rule 15, where I would expect Rule 15 should actually be before those, taking precedence. So maybe take 15 and move it to item 7 as far as as far as numerical order goes. So therefore, you refer to what's already been defined instead of saying, oh, you're in item 10, you're referring to 15, and it's like, it makes it more confusing when you do that. I'd rather have it, it gives you a better logical structure when that is completed that way. But overall, as far as Katie's comments go, I did not bring the hard copy. I didn't make it to the mailbox in time. But overall, I agree with what Katie's saying. As far as definitions of what the different items are, I think what our rules are take precedence over Robert's Rules of Order. It's just if there's any questions, it goes beyond that, beyond what's clarified, it goes to Robert's Rules of Order. That's how I've been told in prior years. So I think that's we can work through that in the details, so.
And this list that's in 15 is from Robert's Rules of Order. This is the standard order of business for everybody. So, the standard order of motions, not business motions.
Any issues with moving item 15 to before number 10? That's, there are rules, we can put them in any order we want, but any issues with that? Or do you like it where it is?
Item 9, 10, 11 are all president stuff. So if you start sticking something that's not the president, it kind of throws it off. So if you're going to move it before all the president stuff. But I don't see an issue with where it is.
Which would put it in 7.
All right, well, I don't want to change it just for the sake of changing. If it reads the way it is, fine. I'll ask for Councilor Doucette to have a little wiggle room and leave it as is, unless there's a real hill to die on.
Okay, number 17.
I'm sorry, Counselor, can I, just a question on 15. The only thing that, I'll be honest, I would be concerned with if you're, if you're going to change, if you're going to change it, so the words that everyone uses, okay, because there are times that I have to refer back to, the video, to get the words, so if someone says to lay a, to table this, and as you indicated, if, instead of now saying postpone, which has been the practice of the council has always been, we're going to table this matter, we're going to table it, which I think everyone kind of understood what to table it means. If it's tabled to the next meeting, then I know, okay, it's tabled to the January 27th meeting. If they say they want to table it to the February 1st meeting.
May not set a date.
I'm sorry? Or they table without setting a date, it's kind of just, right, exactly. The rule or the procedure the council's always followed is if they table it, then someone can remove it from the table at a later time. My only concern would be that if you make sure that people say postpone. If they don't say postpone, now I'm caught in between a rock and a hard place, because now if somebody says table it, then technically
Then I guess it's up to the president
That's
to
where I'd
get
have
that
to
clarification. Do you
make
mean
sure.
lay on the table, or do you mean postpone?
okay, all right, okay.
That's where you kick me under the table. Councilor Roby gives me the bad eyeball and
Gives
says,
you the
hey,
elbow,
pay
too."
attention.
And it'll be a learning curve for us all, I guess. We'll see. Okay.
I know you got time issues. Are you good?
I'm
Because
okay for
we
a
can table,
few-
we can
oh.
postpone to another meeting. Start
think
putting it into practice real
I'm
quick.
going to skip 17 for now, because I think Karen and I were going through that one to kind of figure out old language and if we're going to come back anyway. So 19 is, and I kind of went through and skipped language that wasn't important in this. So it's all reports, any, where are we, all the way at the end? The last sentence, any member shall have the right to appear before any committee of the council. I just want to change member to counselor. Any counselor shall have the right to appear before any committee, since it's really related to that. And the council, the matter has been referred to.
You just want to make sure that they're speaking for something that's actually in committee? Is that
Yes.
what you're after?
As it currently says, any member shall have the right to appear before any committee of the council and be heard. Well,
Okay. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean,
I guess a
I think
committee-
it's implied, but if that
and
helps
you're,
clarify
yeah,
it,
you're probably
that's-
right, it is, because the committee can't meet with something hasn't been referred to them anyway.
Correct.
So maybe skip the matter has been referred to, skip adding that in and just change member to counselor.
Okay, hold one moment. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to get back to 15 on one issue. So the biggest difference between postpone and table is that postpone doesn't have a debate, and, postpone can have a debate, while lay on the table cannot. So from a process goes, there's a big difference between those two. And I just want to make sure that that's raised as far as how we define the wording going forward.
Well,
Because when we lay on the table, we never vote, we never discuss it, we just vote on it.
Right, but so it's going to be important that if someone says a motion to table something in that meeting, someone better remember, whether it's the president or that person making a table motion, to take it off the table in that meeting. Otherwise, then the item goes away. So what, if it goes away, as long as there's no permanent extension or something important, someone would just probably put it on the next agenda, all right? I mean, would be my guess, unless it's a time-required, date-sensitive vote that the council has to take. In which case, I'm sure there's 11 councils that are, and a certain assistant and clerk that are gonna make sure that we don't let something like that mess us up, would be my guess.
And you're right, the point is that it's not debatable, but it does need to get 6 votes. So if somebody says, hey, we're not going to hold this up, I want to deal with it right now, then you don't get 6 votes. A motion is made, there's no discussion, there's a vote, and then you do whatever.
And I believe that's true of all these votes, right? I mean-
No, a motion to postpone is debatable, so
No, but I
some-
mean, the number of votes required
yes,
to, yes.
yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we're...
20.
20. So I'm suggesting to delete what's there and have it say, "All members who wish to speak shall rise and wait to be recognized by the president. They shall respectfully address the president and shall confine themselves to the question under debate. Except during public hearings, members of the city council shall address all questions through the president and not to each other." Again, it's kind of language from Roberts, it's kind of language from what currently exists, and it's kind of courtesy.
I'm trying, and again, I assume you want members to read councilors, right? To be consistent with your other change?
Yes, I suppose, yeah. And I guess I would like this to be in there because, again, it's past practice, and it's been what I was told we did. You raise your hand and you get recognized. Robert's Rules says if you want to speak, and again, I guess if you don't like the fact that I like Roberts, it's just something that I use and I like, and you rise and you get recognized. If two people rise at the same time, or three people, it's whoever the president sees first or whoever he wants to recognize. Everybody else sits down.
See, you're challenging my 16 years of formal education. It says you don't do anything unless you raise your hand.
Well, and ours too, I think. That's why we've always said that you rise. And I think even with some presidents, even before you raised your hand, you were called on. Well, nobody's saying anything, so I'm just going to call on Councilor Dumas to take up this number. Well, he might not want to do that, but somebody else might. So if we're sitting here and nobody's rising, then shame on all of us, because we haven't read the agenda to know, oh, that's my committee. I better stand up and move to refer it to my committee.
That's when I insert Bueller, and wait for someone to move. All right, so, I mean, comments or thoughts on the councilors?
Just one question. The last part of rule, am I reading the wrong one? Oh, no, yeah. The last part of Rule 20, any member of the city council may ask a question through the president of anyone in attendance, was left out of what you struck through and added the new language. So I'm just curious, is it your intent that, so now, for example, if the comptroller is in attendance and, Councilor Perlman wants to ask a question of the comptroller, the way the rule states now is she can ask that question through the president of anyone in attendance. But this new rule, if it's the way it's written, would not allow that.
And again, our intention has always been to suspend, if council, or any council wants someone to speak, it's been,
right.
Is there
I know it's always been the practice to suspend the rules, but now that we've been, or at least I've been, I don't know if I'm misinterpreting, but reading these over and over again, it's that I don't think suspension is required, because it's within the rule that says anybody can ask a question of anyone as long as they're in the room. You know what I mean? So, and the president says it's okay. I mean, yeah.
Well, it currently says any member of the city council may ask a question through the president of anyone in attendance.
Right.
So all I'm doing is saying, except during public hearings, because during public hearings, there's the questions from the council, where we get to rise and ask questions.
But he's saying that sentence, you don't have,
You don't have that last sentence in there that says any member of the city council may ask a question through the president of
Except
anyone in
during
attendance.
public hearings.
Again, meaning if the police chief or the fire chief was here and there's a matter that's on the agenda that you're discussing and you want to ask a question of the fire chief.
Oh, you're saying except during public hearings?
Right, so start from members of the city council, read from there. Members of the city council shall address all questions to the president and not to each other. So to me, it doesn't matter whether it's been suspended or whether it's a petitioner and they're standing up, or you don't ask the petitioner directly. It should go through you to the petitioner. And
Correct, but my point is that if there's someone sitting back here that you wanted to ask a question of, they're not a petitioner, but right now, the current rule says that you can ask that person sitting there a question, even though they're not presenting.
Well, this says all questions, so to me, it doesn't matter who, I don't think we usually ask questions of the audience.
No.
We ask questions of people at,
No, department heads usually.
Department heads sometimes.
So I think maybe it's semantics. I get hung up the except during public hearing thing, that got me, so if it started with counselors, that doesn't make, so you got the word members in there again.
Yeah.
Well, so get rid of it. City councilors shall.
Counselors shall address all questions through the president, not to each other, parentheses, except for public hearings, right? Is that how you, is that how you?
Yeah,
Is that, that's what you're,
right.
that's what you mean, right?
Right. To me, the public hearings are an exception. Otherwise, we should always ask, we're not talking one-on-one to anybody. Everything is through the president.
Correct.
Through you to somebody. It doesn't matter if they're, well, it does matter to me, because we wouldn't, somebody standing back there isn't going to be able to stand up and yell out a question.
No, that they can't ask, no. That wasn't my point, that they can ask a question, but if you wish to ask a question of the police chief who's here in the room, or the DPW commissioner who's in the
I
room.
believe we would have to suspend the rules, but then, Mr. President, through you to the police commissioner.
Okay.
Well, see, that's, okay.
I think we still have to suspend the rules.
I would think so.
Why
Would you have to suspend the
that
rules?
just an implied Robert's rules, or is that the known
Well,
thing?
that's not written anywhere, but we always,
Well, it's past practice.
It's not right, it's not written anywhere, but I mean, again, just reading
But if I-
the rule, any member may ask a question of anyone through the, of anyone in attendance. So if the police chief's in the room, the way I read the rule is that you wouldn't have to suspend the rules. You could ask, Mr. President, I'd like to ask the police chief to explain why, he got $500 from Cummings Foundation, or, what he did to get the $500 from the Cummings Foundation, and that would allow the police chief then to speak, but.
I guess I don't know why we've always had to
I don't
suspend the
either.
rules. I believe it's because
I think it's just been the practice, but.
we are a body that is having a meeting, and so we just don't let anybody speak at our meeting. We are the speakers, except for public hearings where people can speak, or unless there's a question you need to ask where you suspend the rules and let them then come to the microphone and get the questions asked.
We've even suspended the rules to let the mayor speak.
Right,
Oh, yeah?
we have to. We are the body that's meeting, so we
That's right, it's our
among
meeting,
us.
it's our meeting.
It's our meeting, and people can't just stand
I'm
up and-
not disagreeing with you. I'm just stating now, after reading these,
So
15
it's-
times, in the last, 5 days,
The
that
suspension
now
is implied.
reading that line there and then comparing it against to what you have, I just, perplexed as
So do you
to,
want to add in,
I don't want to add anything.
Once
It
it's
doesn't matter to me.
suspended,
It's
so
they're
do we-
your rules.
I guess, does everybody understand that?
I already have a
to
speaking part.
suspend
I
the
don't need to
rules?
speak anymore.
Or somebody can speak.
Here's where I think the rub is, right? So if we take this in literally, the president, the Council Perlman says, Mr. President, I want to ask the mayor to speak. There's no vote on that. That's Mr. President says, yes or no, all right? Now, Mr. President, I'll ask for a suspension of the rules. Now everybody gets a say in it, right? I mean, I just want to be clear, because what the clerk's pointing out is how it's literally written. There's nothing in there that says go ask for a suspension.
But it isn't currently either. Number 20 is currently written, does not say you have to ask for a suspension first.
No, you won't find suspension anywhere. We've just been doing it that way.
Because we are the body holding the meeting, and so we can't just let anybody speak.
But according to your
without the
rule, you're allowing the president to make that determination.
But how to suspend, again, I'm not arguing the
But it-
counselor, it's how it's literally written. I mean, it's
Correct.
literally written, the president can sit there, the counselor says, I want to ask the mayor to speak. There's no thing that says, there's no rule that says ask for a suspension of the rules.
But addressing the question through the president is different than saying, I want to ask the mayor a question. First, you need to stand up and say, I want to ask the mayor a question, so I'm going to move to suspend the rules. Now, the rules have been suspended, the mayor is up there. So then you say, Mr. President, through you to the mayor.
No, the point I think we're trying to make is to have the rules clarify how would a new council know to ask for suspension of the rules?
I don't know, how do,
Well, no, so that's the point. So we should put it in our rules that says what the process is.
Right, well-
Because the rules right now, literally is what,
Right, no,
I'm making a literal interpretation of the rule.
Okay.
If I were,
we know currently. we all.
It's just been the practice.
That's how we've done it.
It's not past practice. I think it's an understanding that we are.
The body.
The body.
Yeah.
Holding a meeting, and.
To have
Yeah,
someone
but the
else
body
speak.
has adopted
Somebody
these
else
rules.
speak.
But I'm just beating a
But
dead horse
if-
now.
If there's a desire or a sense that this needs to be clarified, so we can hold off on this one too, because I do need to disappear.
So here's what would be my recommendation. Let's incorporate what we've got so far, all right?
Yep.
I'll put it on the agenda. I'm looking for Karen and Steve to say, hey, here's the first attempt. That way we get it into an official order number. It'll go back to the committee again, so I'll say we postpone this, is that, because I don't have an order number, right? We've just said, because Karen's yelled at me a little bit for not having an order number. Right? So,
Because I didn't make my motion correctly, I will.
okay, but so to be correct, so do we want to put the the latest track change version on the next council agenda and say, or do I report it out of committee saying, here's what we've discussed, but it's going to be postponed in committee till we meet again to add additional items? I mean, I can work on those.
This does not have a number, so.
Because there is a number.
We're better off putting it on the agenda, it can have a number, and then you can set up.
There is a number associated with the acceptance of the 2019 rules for 2020. I mean, if you want to assign that to this,
Okay.
we can do that. I mean, it really, because the order that was created was that the 2019 rules be adopted until the 2020 rules until the rules can be reviewed and amendments made. So, I mean, technically,
That was my argument with.
Technically, there is,
Didn't like that.
technically, there is an order. I mean, I know when Sarah posted the meeting, I mean, that was her concern as well. There was no order number associated with it. But I mean, I said I could provide you with that order number, but it was just a matter of trying to get the meeting posted quickly, so, no worries.
Hang on, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much. As far as tracking changes from this meeting versus the prior, just because I'm used a lot to tracking lots of changes, having different colors for the different changes of what was, the original versus the current proposed changes versus what the next draft of changes are, at least having that as one of the references would be good, because I want to see what we agreed to as being okay versus, because I think Councilor Roby brought up some very good points, some other points we didn't get into, complete consensus
If
with.
everyone's okay with the original version of track changes that was sent out, which I think everybody was, then we made some various changes to those things and Councilor Roby's items. How about if we just call it Rev 1, incorporate all of the track, all the ones that we discussed tonight, the new ones that are wireless, include a special permit, add, for climate change, add improving sustainability, and then add the ones that if you send me the Word version of this, I'll work these into the latest track change one, and we'll have that as the latest version.
There was one thing that we didn't get to that I just want to raise because it was a change. As far as communications being in Times New Roman font, size 12 and justified, it's more the size than the font. I just don't want small text.
Counselor, everything will be Times New Roman 12, but I'm not requiring it. I was the one who said to the president to remove that portion of the rule from, because it was, but trust me, you're not going to get little itty bitty font. It's all going to be, it's all going to be the way it is. I just said that, if someone submits something in Courier New, I'm not going to reject it and say, didn't make the agenda. I'm just going to
It came from you, I'm fine with it then.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
So a motion would be in order to postpone the Rules Committee to a future date that I'm not sure yet, but this way it'll be postponed, and I will get the latest version out to all the councils. We'll use the order number from the inauguration meeting that approved.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll have fun writing it out. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? You're good?
Yeah, fine.
All those in favor?
2-0.
2-0.
Hey.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
favor?
We are adjourned
Boy,
at
I'll tell you.
7:05.